Okay, so the live is preparing. It's working. I think finally we're broadcasting live. So I think this time it's working after a couple of technical difficulties. So Patrick Whaley from Hancock Mortgage here with my good friend Declan O'Toole from Select RE. Good to see you this morning, Declan.
You too, Patrick. Top of the morning to you.
And the rest of the day to you. So really what spurred this to take place is a article that we saw in Housing Wire, which is a real estate and mortgage industry trade publication. And the topic was with this COVID-19 virus, is it causing more people now and in the future to want to have that more of a social distancing and move away from the densely populated cities out to the suburbs? Do people really want to get out of the apartment, get out of the condo complex that are so close to the neighbors and really have more space just to themselves? So Declan has been in the real estate game for a long time and in the Boston and surrounding areas. So I think he's very well equipped here to talk to us about some of the market stats and some of the trends he starts to see developing. And is this theory true? And what does it mean for you if you're a renter or looking to buy or looking to sell? So Declan, thanks for joining us this morning. And I guess the first question is, some of the market stats, some of the trends that you're actually seeing. So we're in a spring market, although it's an unusual spring market, okay? So with what's going on right now, let's take a look at what has happened maybe last year. Give us a couple of market stats as to comparing this new reality to what a typical spring market would look like for a buyer, seller, or renter.
Yeah, so Patrick, obviously things have changed. We had an early spring market this year to begin with. We had January, February, because the weather played a big part in that. That it looked like it was going to be a very strong spring market. When you really go into March and April, that's where it starts picking up. Then we got hit obviously with the coronavirus. And I believe it was on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
The high holy day. What a day for it to all fall apart, huh?
Tell me about it. It's also the day that Tom Brady decided he was going to.
Oh, you're just full of good news this morning, aren't you?
But it's it was evacuation day in Boston. It seems like a lot of people. That's when the wave of temporary migration happened through the suburbs. So, ironically, so that'll be known for 2020 now. But I like to look at this a few different ways. I suppose before this virus happened, there's during, which is right now, and after. What are the trends and what's going on? Before, I like to call it BC because it was before Corona, and AD we just started, which is after distancing, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So if you look at it, obviously there are less properties on the market right now than there were previously. Look at previous years, for instance, happened for a friend. His daughter was interested in looking at the South Boston market. I took that for an example, and I looked at a couple of other markets as well. Last year, if you're looking at a 2-bed plus apartment for $750,000 or less, yes, you can still get an apartment in South Boston for less than $750,000. Last year, there were 40 properties on the market between March 17th, we'd say, and the end of last month, basically yesterday, 4/30/2019. Same period of time here, there were 20 properties per other market, so literally half the number, and that's trend seems to work for other places. I live in Salem, I live in Hingham. The other markets seem to be very similar, and what's happening is prices haven't changed. And days on market, days to offer were very similar. Last year it was 7 days to an offer. So basically we're looking at getting an open house. This time around it was 5 days to offer. It's a small sample, it's not that scientific, but what you're seeing is properties are still moving, but because there's less. I think what's really happening is the spring market is going to get pushed off. June, July, you would never put your property on before, certainly in July and August even. I think it's going to start getting pushed out that way a little bit. So just in terms of currently, if you're looking at it from the perspective of a seller, I actually think right now is a good time to put it on the market, but you have to market it properly. There's right now curb appeal. Curb appeal used to be make sure you paint the front door and that you got flowers outside. Now it's people expect 3D tours. You can't just walk through a property. What people are doing is, in fact, a recent stat I saw was on Zillow. Tours went up. 3D tours went up 188% in March of 20 over March of 2019. Keep in mind it was really only halfway through that month, certainly in the local area, that we got hit with the shutdowns. I think the number would be a lot.
It absolutely makes sense. So with consumers at home more. If they are interested in real estate, there are less open houses, less chances there aren't any open houses really. It's more scheduled showings.
Right.
So for those consumers that may be, softly entering the market to purchase a home, rather than bouncing around at some open houses at the weekend, they're taking advantage of the technology that's there and using virtual tours. So you're recommending or suggesting now for a home seller or someone who's thinking of selling their home that now is a good time to list because there's less inventory, less competition on the market?
Correct, but if you do it, you got to do it right. So, and you also have to, in fact, something that we're working with is you got to pre-qualify the buyers too. You don't want just anybody walking through your home. So you can speak more to this, but pre-approvals, make sure you're getting pre-approvals from the buyers if they're doing a tour. Make sure it's recent.
Recent's a big key, because on the mortgage end of things, a whole lot has changed in a really short time period. So as a real estate agent, you're doing not open houses, but scheduled showings, and you want a real buyer. You don't want just a looky-loo, nosy neighbor that wants to see what the inside of the house looks like. You want someone coming through the home that has taken the extra steps and has actually gotten their pre-approval. They have it in hand, and that they're a qualified buyer. So, otherwise, why, you don't want to, have just anybody walking through the house. You want to make sure your sellers are safe and the buyers are safe. You don't want any, cross-contamination here. You want to have it as safe as possible. Now, what are some of the things you're doing on those scheduled showings to try and help protect your sellers as well as the potential buyers walking through the home?
Yeah, so if you're doing a showing right now, what we've asked sellers to do is with their homes. It's obviously easier if it's vacant. That's one situation. But even if you're living there, obviously not to be there for the showing. That used to be, I would have gone along with that before this too, but essentially all doors open. Anywhere you want them to see, closets, leave them open, leave them ajar. So when they come through, they're not physically going to be touching any surfaces. We'll still come through afterwards at ourselves. Sometimes the homeowner wants to do it, but you do a Clorox of every single surface, particularly door handles. They should never be touched, but out of habit, some people are going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing, is just leave it open, declutter. But that's, again, for any market, but particularly in this market, again, I'm kind of getting back to when you're putting it on the market and the curb appeal is exercise bikes. Maybe it's all the boxes, the extra boxes you have in the basement. Put that stuff away so that it's not obstructing. So less obstructions there are, the better. But
exactly, yeah. So people aren't going to be bumping into things or touching things to move them out of the way. It's sort of the old, look but don't touch.
Yeah, exactly.
Theory as you're walking through the open house. Fantastic, and decluttering, because obviously you want those virtual tours and those pictures. You want the home to look as spacious as you can, and when people are actually walking through, you don't want them touching anything or bumping into anything. You want a clear path through each room. That makes perfect sense. So I'll speak to a little bit about buyers in the market. So you touched on it a little bit here in terms of pre-approvals. So for the buyers that are out there or that are active in the market now or maybe active in the near future, you absolutely want to get your pre-approval in place, because as you're hearing Declan say, you're not even going to get a scheduled showing of the house unless you have been pre-approved, because Declan and really all the real estate professionals out there trying to protect their home seller as well as other consumers, and really only want those serious buyers to come through. So if you are in the market or you want to be in the market in the near future, absolutely get your pre-approval in place. I'm talking to a lot of people that have an idea that maybe sometime later this year they're going to be in buying mode. So I'm advising them, hey, it's the get ready to get ready conversation. Okay, it's gather all of your paperwork. Let's take a look at it now, even though you're not looking to buy for several months, just so we can get that pre-approval lined up. Maybe there are credit issues that need to be addressed. Maybe you need to save more money for a down payment. Maybe there's a misconception on what the budget numbers actually look like and what you can afford. So my opinion, it's always easier to put the figures together first and then find a home that fits that budget, as opposed to falling in love with the home and then trying to figure out a way to make the numbers work. And I hate being the bad guy, but sometimes I have to be the bad guy and tell somebody the numbers don't work. I know you fell in love with the home, but it doesn't work. So get ready to get ready is the theory that I'm throwing out there to a lot of people. Get your pre-approval lined up.
And speaking to that, in terms of buyers and the market, the same thing. Like that, out of curiosity, I had a quick look at September and October of last year. I think you will find some opportunities. I don't think prices are going. There's not going to be a crash. Just if you're looking for a crash in the next 2 or 3 months, it's not going to happen. You're going to get more properties on the market. Days on the market will last longer. For instance, South Boston, just another example of last year, the days to offer went from 7 days, it went up to, I believe it was 32 days. So that's just an example of you will have more opportunities as time goes on. But I do not expect that
I don't see this as a housing crash at all. So we go back to 2007, it's through 12, 13, whatever you want to say, things started to turn around. That was absolutely based on real estate and housing and mortgage financing. That was the focal point of where things went wrong. Okay, so this time I'm happy to stand up and say it's not my fault. I didn't do it this time. Okay, so it's not housing related. So when things get back to normal, whatever the new normal is going to look like, I really don't think that we're going to see a huge impact in terms of value of real estate. If anything, we're still in a very tight market in terms of inventory. It's still a seller's market. There's still way more buyers out there than there are sellers. I mean, I think the stats are, we're still less than 3 months worth of inventory.
Oh, yeah.
Usually that tipping point, that breaking point is for an even market is 6 months worth of inventory. When we have less than 6 months worth of inventory, we're in a seller's market. But we're in a strong seller's market when we have less than 3 months worth of inventory. So it definitely speaks to the fact that, there is still strong demand. There is limited inventory. If you are looking to buy and you're waiting for a crash or you're waiting for something to happen to get a deal or steal a property, sorry to tell you, I just don't think that's going to be a reality. You're going to be left sitting on the sidelines for quite a while.
Yeah, and you're right, Patrick. I mean, it was a certain 08, and honestly, it had started slowing down in 06, but sellers are always the last people to know when the property's worth less. There was surplus inventory, there was over production of new construction at the time, and there were liar mortgages, what I remember you would never do. That's another story. You were the one mortgage broker that I knew that wasn't giving easy mortgages, and that's part of why you're still here.
The stated income, the no doc, the ninja loans. Remember the ninja loans? No income, no assets, no job. I mean, basically, if you could fog a mirror, you could get mortgage financing, and that, I mean, inevitably that's going to lead to problems, and it certainly did. So now we've got mortgage loan products that are, I don't know if restrictive is the right word, that sounds negative, but definitely more qualifying parameters. You do have to prove that you are working and you do have income, and you do have a good credit profile. And that certainly in recent times that has tightened up a little bit as lenders are concerned with home buyers going into forbearance, and that's a whole other topic for another video. I've already done a couple of videos on that, but basically the underwriting requirements have gotten a little bit more restrictive. So it goes back to the point you made earlier, Declan, of a recent pre-approval. So if you have a pre-approval from 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, probably not valid today. You want to reach back out to your loan officer and take a look at how things look now with a revision to some underwriting guidelines. Are you still truly pre-approved? Don't assume it's the case.
That's not only with sales, buying. There's a big issue with the landlords. It's going to start coming home in the next month or two, with renters. So
talk about the rental market. So especially in Boston, where we've got a heavy student population, and there's some question marks with the universities in terms of, are students going to be in the classroom, or is it going to be, a study from home? How is that going to impact the rental market? And I guess more importantly, the landlords, the investors that have those rental properties, what do their values look like going forward?
That's an interesting question. I'll answer what I can. A lot of it's going to depend on the universities as well, which we're not 100% sure what's going to happen in September. I can tell you that for instance, the student season, with regards to September 1st rentals, usually there's a rush on them from March through May, March, April, May, right in the middle of what would be student season in Boston, Brighton, down near Northeastern, in the Boston area. And that's been slow. It's been very slow. It's early adopters are the ones that have already gotten their apartments, and they're already asking if they're going to get their money back if for some reason the colleges don't open up in September. Wow. So from a landlord perspective, that's not just students. You're looking at the other issue is you've got even young professionals. Or the issue with renters is a disproportionate share of renters are certainly the working renters are those that are likely to get laid off. They're they're in those service industries. There's a higher portion of their income is spent on housing, and they've got less savings to ride out the current crisis. So you're looking at a situation with landlords where they're trying to be proactive, maybe do half rent, month's rent. They're trying to work with the tenants. But I suppose even just getting back to if you're renting, if you're actually a landlord or an investor that's looking to take on tenants, they're getting they need to see a little bit more security from the tenant that's applying. Have you been furloughed or have you been laid off? They need to see proof of savings, bank account. So it used to be credit check, landlord reference, get a feel for the person. Do they have a dog? Do they not have a dog? It's not as simple as that right now. Yeah, you have to do a lot more.
Yeah. So you're saying, so it sounds like the process of renting a new place isn't all that different from the process of buying a place at this point. That landlord wants some additional screening and information to make sure that that person really can make that rental payment on the first of the month.
Well, keep in mind too, evictions, right? Again, there's a good reason behind it.
Moratorium has been placed on evictions. Yeah.
Correct. So to even start an eviction right now, I may get my dates wrong, but I believe right now the emergency is in place until May 18th, right? So you got it's 45 to 90 days. They can change that, so you can't even start the process with the tenant until that moratorium is up. So it puts a landlord in place where they have to be very picky about who to take on. But with their current tenants, they got to reach out to them and kind of work with them from an early stage and know exactly where they stand and plan accordingly and plan with their bank.
Yeah, I think it definitely goes to, just in general being proactive. And if you think there's going to be an issue, hey, reach out to your landlord, have that discussion rather than just curled up in a fetal position in the corner and hope it all goes away.
Right.
You got to have that open lines of communication. And I'm sure the landlords would much rather hear from a tenant and say, hey, I've got this going on, and try to come up with some sort of plan rather than just radio silence and have the landlord try to figure out themselves what they're going to do. But in general now, we don't have the statistics to say that it's true or it's not true or it's happening or it's not happening. But sort of your gut feel in terms of this whole theory of people wanting to move away from the city and more into the suburbs and more open space. From my perspective, I think from a psychological standpoint, it makes sense with the social distancing and not wanting to be an apartment with a neighbor, 2 feet the other side of that wall, that you want to have your own space, you want to have your own backyard, you don't want to be that close to other people. Again, psychologically, I think that makes sense. I certainly think that we're going to see that, which again is even further going to put pressure on home buyers where there's limited inventory. I think there's going to be much stronger demand in the suburbs and surrounding areas around any major metro. What do you see happening?
Well, so I suppose a couple of things. We got three that I think off the top of my head would be empty nesters, millennials, and working professionals. Right? Okay. What's happening? What was the trend? What was the trend before this? What's the trend right now? Is it literally call it a trend, and where do we think it's going to go? Empty nesters, where selling in the burbs, the big property, Brookline, Westmead, South, North Shore, it doesn't matter where, we're looking to move into the city, right? Because you get a smaller place, closer to the hospitals, people are getting older, they're living active lifestyles much longer. So empty nesters were moving into the city where everybody was closer, building would have to have an elevator because as they get older, they don't really use an elevator. That's one thing. Then you get the millennials, which are starting to move to the burbs. Initially, as they're younger and single, there would be, they were looking to move out to the local burbs to hipsterbia, right? Basically the local burbs near the city, but there's still a lot of stuff going on. And then working professionals tended to live in the city, but then as they had kids, they'd move out to the burbs a little bit. The empty nesters, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them in terms of, now that people have been at home, as I said, we had the evacuation day for Boston. You're looking at, they're getting used to the yard, they're maybe in the summer, there's a pool, they can go for a walk. They are not getting into an elevator with 5 other people. So that things that you might have taken for granted before, people are going to start thinking twice about moving into the city. The millennials, I can still see moving a little further back. When you look at the young professionals, you look at offices right now, and again, this is opinion, not fact, but people are getting used to working from home, right? They're doing it right now. I've talked to a number of people that are, in different various businesses talking about, well, maybe you work from home 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And, you work in sort of, it become a case of, there's a declining cost of distance, right? There's technology, Zoom, etc. Yep. So these middle ground areas in the suburbs, and actually might go a little bit further out as people get used to being further out, you're going to start seeing, I think, a trend to basically being a place where you've got urban amenities but less densely populated. And I think that's a trend that may start. We won't see it. It might take a while before that happens, but I've got a feeling that's the direction we're going in.
Yeah, so it's a direction of, previously wanting to live close to the office versus working from home. And, for those homes in those suburban areas, just in terms of, I guess, staging it. So if you are in that suburban area and you're thinking about listing your home for sale, in terms of staging, I think one of the most popular amenities in a home now is going to be a home office. So Correct. Maybe it's, staging it where you convert, a spare bedroom or, the smallest bedroom into a home office.
Don't do what I do and have it in the basement.
Yeah, exactly. You finish the basement and you turn that into a home office. So I think in terms of return on investment here, making a change like that, building out a specific space or even staging a specific space in the current environment, I think that's going to be, one of the most popular amenities that's going to be there. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure if you can search specifically for that kind of a term in MLS, but it'd be interesting to see, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, look back historically and see how many properties were listed with that as an amenity, home office.
Interesting you say that, Patrick, because if you do a search in MLS right now, you have number of beds, number of baths. And sometimes people will put in 2-bed, and then the first sentence on their description will say 2-bed plus, in brackets, office. So they may set it up. I could see that where they put down office as a particular. In fact, I'd recommend anybody from the MLS is listening to us that they actually include that.
Yeah. So word, some advice from boots on the ground on the front lines here on real estate. Fantastic. So we've been on for a little bit here. So I want to sort of bring it full circle before we wrap up. So there certainly is a belief, and I think both of us agree with that belief, that there is going to be a movement away from some of the urban areas that are densely populated to the burbs, just to, not to beat that social distancing term, but just to get more space. Okay, so the sort of the call to action here, are the recommendations for people that are different segments of the population. So if you're a seller, my recommendation would be use this time at home to make those improvements, those handyman projects, those quick fixes, get the home ready for a showing, get the home ready to be listed for sale. And one of the suggestions I'll throw in there is try to figure out how you can make a dedicated space look like or designed to be a home office, because I think that certainly is going to be a selling feature. So if you're a seller, you want to use this time, if you're at home, to prepare that home for sale. Any other advice for sellers, Declan?
No, and I also say the other one, I suppose, is don't feel, don't wait. I mean, I think if anything, what I've learned from looking at these markets is, because there's less people looking, right? But there's also a lot less stuff on the market. So the real buyers are there, but you've got to make sure you do it right. 3D tours, I think, is very important. They basically curb appeal on the inside. That I think, if anything you take away from this, that's important. That's what they're going to look at before they go inside now. That used to be the case. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, so the proper staging, the proper pictures, the proper 3D tours to want people to come in to see it in person. But again, seeing it in person. So here's the call to action, or the advice for the prospective buyers out there is, get your pre-approval. If you already have a pre-approval, get it updated. Okay, but go through the process. There's a huge difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. Okay, pre-qualification, unfortunately, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Okay, because you can do that in 4 or 5 minutes over the phone. What you want is a pre-approval where a lender is going to take a look at all of your income documents, all of your asset documents, going to review your credit report, and make sure you truly are a qualified buyer. So Declan, as a listing agent representing sellers, if you're doing those scheduled showings, you want a full-blown pre-approval before you let somebody in the door. Regardless of how much they want to see the house, maybe that sets you up as a bad guy a little bit here, but you're protecting your home seller, you're protecting other people that come through. You only want a limited number of people, and they have to be truly qualified buyers.
I don't mind being the bad person if I'm good to my seller. So it's
well, yeah. So the buyer may view you as a bad guy. Hey, I want to come and see the house, and you say, well, no, you need a pre-approval. But that's that's really the new world that we're in, and that's what you have to do to protect all the other parties involved, which in the business that makes sense to me. So it's a call to action for sellers, call to action for buyers. Any tips for renters? So I know you do some property management. We talked on that a little bit here, how renters are being screened a little bit more than they had been in the past. Any quick tips for renters if they're looking to rent a new place?
So maybe not the short term, but the same thing that applies to buyers is that credit check is still important as well. Is make sure you screen that, see where you're at with that, basically is again, I can't tell people keep your job, right? Yeah. But essentially, from that perspective, I think you just gotta you gotta present yourself a little bit better. You got to just be prepared.
Yeah, so I guess it's just expecting a tighter screening process.
Right.
It's not just, okay, I can sign a lease and here are the keys. There is more of a process to it.
Yeah, have your paperwork ready. It's something that also is helpful. Is not all landlords necessarily go for it, but do a personal letter. If you've got an issue with your credit, for instance, stuff happens, right? Or even with the job situation, write a personal letter, explain exactly what it is, and that way then you can explain, because you don't get a chance to explain it to the landlord after you've submitted your paperwork. It goes into a void from your perspective. So you can explain exactly where you're coming from, what's going on, the new job that's coming up, whatever it happens to be. Tell them
it's being proactive.
Correct.
It's getting out in front of it and explaining the situation. And like I've told so many people, if you don't explain it, if you don't frame that situation, explain what went on, someone's looking at it blindly and they're going to make up their own story as to what the situation is or the hows and whys. And usually if other people are making up the story, it's not going to be a happy story. You're presented as the bad guy in that story.
You're competing against somebody else. So if it's a simpler answer, that's it. They don't know you. Just a statistic until you rent their car.
All right, fantastic. So we've got call to action there for home sellers, call to action there for home buyers, and a call to action there for renters in terms of what they can do to be proactive, all three categories of consumers out there. So I think we'll wrap it up. But before we do, anybody that's watching, if you have ideas or questions or topics for a future show that you'd like to see discussed, or any questions about anything that we've been talking about, please reach out. So Declan is tagged in this video. I'm broadcasting it on my timeline as well. So you can send either of us a direct message or drop a comment. Let us know what else that you had wanted to talk about. And Declan, in our sort of pre-show prep, if you will, we discussed making this a regular series. So I think we're going to continue with this, cover a different topic, and maybe do this twice a week. So I think Tuesdays and Thursdays is what we've settled on. So despite the technical difficulties a couple of times getting this to work, Facebook's constantly making
time up here.
They're constantly making updates to the platform. So we finally got it running here. But I think we're going to do this version of the Wicked Awesome Report Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Broadcasted on both of our timelines, and actually we do have a Wicked Awesome Report Facebook page as well. So I'll share the video to that, and give us a thumbs up, give us a like, follow that page, and you'll be alerted when we do have some new videos and new topics that come up.
And back up what Patrick said, if you're watching the video and you've got some stuff you'd like to get answers to or even just discuss, certainly send them to us, and then we'll take that into consideration, and certainly more than likely.
I mean, there is so much content, so much information in the worlds of real estate and mortgage. We could have a year's worth of shows lined up, no problem at all. But it's more important to us to answer the questions that the public has. So whatever you want to know about, tell us, ask us that question, and we'll cover it in future shows. So that's all that I had.
Right. That's it for me.
So thanks for jumping on. We'll catch you next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And follow up with Thursday at 10 a.m. as well. So until the next broadcast, hope everybody stays awesome.
Stay safe.
Another episode of the Wicked Awesome Report in the books. Thanks, Declan.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let's see if I can end the broadcast here.